Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that last set of fireside chats. It's always fascinating to see how individual consumer choices on a micro level interact with high-level framework like the SDGs. Don't forget, you can of course catch up on the session you've missed on the Women's Forum website. Now, in the spirit of a constructive clash of ideas, I'm extremely excited to announce our next session, our next and final session of the day. A debate jointly curated with the New York Times with the motion, "This House believes that technology will save the world." It promises to be a fiery and provocative event, just like we like them. So, without further ado, I'll hand over the virtual mic to Francesca Donner, Gender Director of the New York Times, who will moderate the debate. Let the fun begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning, wherever you are. Welcome. I'm Francesca Donner, Gender Director at the New York Times. I am so pleased to welcome you to the New York Times debate, our 6th joint debate with the Women's Forum. I'm going to tell you in a minute a little bit about how this is going to work, but I do want to say one thing. I know this is a digital debate. Normally, in normal years, which this year is clearly not, we do them live. They're on stage, they're fun, and as Sophie said, they're fiery. This year, we're going to make it fun, and we're going to make it fiery, and we're going to do our best to work through any crazy technological whatever's happened to make it a good one. All right, is everyone ready? Onward. Today, our lauded debaters will make the case that technology will or will not save the world. Over the last few years, many have questioned technology's impact on our world. We have seen cyber attacks, too many to count, and election tampering, extreme rhetoric showing up on mainstream social platforms, grave and extensive misinformation spun out of control in a matter of minutes. Market dominance has hindered growth, some argue, and we have witnessed the commodification of personal data, surveillance capitalism, as Shoshana Zuboff calls it. So many issues. And yet, technology brings us safer, traceable supply chains. It provides greater accountability and creative global solutions that can be implemented with the click of a button. Actually, technology is never really that easy. We all know that. People are using social media as platforms for justice too, and as a means of elevating marginalized and oppressed voices. While technology is accelerating environmental and alternative energy solutions, in the thick of a global pandemic, the implications in medicine are huge. Not all bad. Doubtless, this will be a tough debate, with fine arguments on both sides that seek to answer the question, will technology allow us to build the fair and inclusive future the world needs, or will it divide us further? In short, will technology save the world? To help us answer the question, I'll be calling on 2 teams of debaters, 3 on each side of the debate. In pairs, they'll come to the virtual stage to make their case. After we've heard from all 6 debaters, I'll ask our honored jurists to offer some constructive commentary on what they've heard. Then, based on the jury's feedbacks, the teams will draft their closing remarks while we enjoy a brief performance by Amanda Gorman, the Youth Poet Laureate. Finally, our debaters will present their closing arguments to the jury and to all of us. But the jury will not choose a winner. That honor, dear audience, rests with you. As they make their final case, you will be invited to vote via the Women's Forum platform, and we will announce the winner of today's proceedings. All right, I wish I could see the audience, but I can't, so I'm going to assume that everyone is ready. And at this point, I would like to call up our first pair of debaters to the virtual stage. I'm going to introduce them. We have one who will be for and one who will be against the idea that technology will save the world. I would like to introduce them both at the same time, and then we will let them make their remarks. So on the for side, John Gordon. John Gordon is President, Commercial IoT at Lenovo, and he offers this fun fact, which is I helped my daughter launch a business called Whomie.com. Whomie? Well, he's going to have to correct us on that. That uses technology for good. It helps people figure out what career would be good for them by getting feedback from their network. Now, on the other side, on the against side, we have Savova, and she is a partner at Clifford Chance. Fun fact, she says, I'm the record holder for lost passwords. Home and office computers, iPhones, iPad, email accounts, and iCloud. I suspect they had to invent the option forget my password just for me. You can count me in on that as well, Desi. All right, so over to you two. Let's start with John Gordon, and then we will go to Desi. Each debater will have up to 3.5 minutes to argue for or against the motion. So, John, are you ready? Your time starts now.
Thank you, Francesca, and thanks to the Women's Forum for including me. I have to admit, it's a little bit intimidating being the only male in a technology debate here. But as the father to 2 daughters and a son, I firmly believe that supporting opportunities for women is not just a women's issue. It should be for all of us. So, for the topic of the debate, I do believe technology will, in fact, save the world because it creates opportunities, it expands our thinking and our creativity, and frankly, it is the only way to solve some of our greatest problems. So let's go through each of those. First, let's talk about opportunity. Look what we're doing today. We are in the midst of a global pandemic, and yet we're able to have discussion and debate from all across the planet. For centuries, pandemics have driven humanity into isolation. But now, thanks to technology, we're able to come together and support each other in ways we never could have before. I do get to see this firsthand at Lenovo as we use PCs to help students learn and help doctors treat patients and help businesses get back to work. So amazing opportunities we would never do in a pandemic if it weren't for technology. Additionally, in the developing world, we've seen technology create a more inclusive opportunity for people. Just look at Kenya, where we're now seeing people get into the economy because they're using mobile banking. No longer do people have to take long trips to a bank and dangerous opportunities to carry cash around, but they can use mobile technology like inexpensive mobile phones and like M-Pesa, the technology that helps them do these transfers. Much safer, and it brings people in. There's still nearly 2 billion unbanked people in the world, and 56% of them are women. I think we can give them better opportunity. Second opportunity here is that technology really helps us become more creative. We talked about medicine. Medical literature is exploding. In fact, just this year, in 1 week alone in May, over 4,000 medical journal articles were published just about COVID-19. So if you're a doctor trying to keep up, that is impossible. I got to witness while I was at IBM, doctors that were using technology to sort through all this information, not to give them answers, but to stretch their thinking about what could I do for a patient that had no other options for them. But it doesn't just have to be these incredible cases like treating rare cancer. Probably every single one of us has asked the question, what do I want to be when I grow up? In fact, maybe many of us are still asking that question. As Francesca said, I'm really proud of my daughter, Kayla Gordon, for starting a business called Whomie.com. You nailed the pronunciation there for Francesca. But she's trying to use technology for good to help people see what's good about their skills, what could they consider being, so they can find a new career path. And with tens of millions of people out of work and 85% not engaged in their job, that's real expansion of thinking we need. And finally, I'll close by saying, if we look at some of the biggest problems like climate change, we've all talked about how we can slow it, but what if I told you technology could actually reverse it? And that's what companies like Indigo Ag are doing as they seek to use technology to find the most sustainable methods to farm every acre on the planet. They believe if they do it, they'll put 1 trillion tons of carbon from the air back into the ground and get our atmosphere back to pre-industrial revolutions. I know of no plan to do this that doesn't involve technology. So as you can tell, I'm very bullish on technology. I believe it will save the world. I'm looking forward to hearing from our opponents. And if something does go wrong, I hope that they would decide that they can stop.
Okay. I think we just witnessed our first speaker getting cut off. He lost a few seconds, which feels slightly unfair, but okay. Desi, let that be a warning to you.
With the technology at the end there, Francesca.
The technology failed us. All right, so hopefully you were able to communicate everything that you needed to. Desi, I suggest that you finish 5 seconds before your actual time is up, but I will give you a warning if we're getting very close. So it's over to you to make a counter case. Are you ready? Go.
People love the idea that technology will save the world. It will not. People will. Technology can be used for good and for worse. Just look at history. We split the atom. We created both unprecedented clean power, but also enormous destruction, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Both were the consequences of decisions made by people. The current development of killer robots and autonomous weapons could become a major threat. Have we learned from history? If these developments cause damage, it will be because of people. If they don't, it will also be because of people. Beyond the risk of physical destruction, some of our fundamental values are at stake. The role of social media, for instance. The initial concept was a great one, connecting people. In reality, a happy few earned billions of dollars and billions of people have lost control of their privacy and their data. Back in 2010, Mark Zuckerberg said that privacy is over and that actually privacy is no longer a social norm. He had to change his mind, but Facebook was still unable to protect its users from Cambridge Analytica scandal and from the misuse of the data of 87 million users. Worse, the role of social media in the spread of hate speech and violent content against the French teacher Samuel Paty went viral last October and played a key role in this tragedy. Let's also look at those who have recently claimed that technology will save the world. Last May, the UK government said that its technology, test and trace, will protect the British people from the pandemic. The system failed, and actually experts said it was having at best marginal impact. It has cost £12 billion to the UK taxpayer. And I actually doubt that the French government is much prouder with its Stop COVID application. If technology is supposed to save the world, it's certainly not doing a very good job of it. So why are we so willing to put so much faith in the idea that technology alone will save the world? I think the answer is that actually it allows us to externalize our own problems. The truth is that without people, politics and right regulations, there can be no solutions to our problems. To do so, we must first abandon the illusion that technology will save us. This is a utopia, a blue pill. Remember the blue pill in the movie The Matrix, for those who want to live in happy ignorance. When we say this, we close our eyes and we make the option to be blind. We turn away from the one thing capable of saving the world, ourselves.
All right. Thank you. The big question raised is, will we take the blue pill? Right, thank you so much to both of you. Those were excellent, excellent remarks. We're going to move on to our second group. I'd like to call our second pair of debaters to the virtual stage. It looks like they're there, brilliant. And now I'm going to introduce them both, including, as we did before, their fun fact. Okay, so on the for side, we have Rim Tehraoui, the Chief Data Officer at BNP Paribas. And the tech fun fact here is, since the lockdown, I'm having a hard time choosing between peace, i.e. letting my sons play Fortnite for hours, and network bandwidth, which means prohibiting online games. We feel your pain. We really feel your pain. But here, this is actually even more astounding. This is a really astounding fact, also coming from you, considering you're on the for side. I have never used Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Really? What are you using instead? People want to know. Okay, before you answer this question, maybe it will come up in your speech. I'd like to introduce Genevieve Smith on the against side. She is Associate Director at UC Berkeley Haas School of Business at the Center for Equity, Gender and Leadership. She says, my first job was in inclusive technology, specifically integrating women and a gender lens into the development of cleaner burning cook stoves in the highlands of Peru. Great work. All right. Are you ready? Yes? Okay. So we're going to lead with Rim. And if you're ready, your time starts now. Go.
Thank you, Francesca. So I'm not going to answer the second question, but just let you know that my sons are not playing Fortnite right now. So I hope Wi-Fi will not let me down. So I believe technology will save the world for 3 reasons. Those reasons are about evolution, purpose, and humanity. We often think about technology as the latest innovation, the smartphone, the 3D printer, but it's only by taking a longer view that we can understand how much it is intertwined to our societal evolution. Our ancestors used to live in zero-sum societies, but after 10,000 years of sporadic advance, the modern world suddenly experienced relentless technological progress, and as a result, we have inherited a wealthier society than any previous generation would have been able to imagine. And perhaps the most striking example of a nation using technology to leapfrog economically and socially is Rwanda. It is hard to believe, but this small country, which went through the most terrible humanity drama with the 1994 genocide, has completely rebuilt itself by putting technology and women at its core. And it is now enjoying one of the strongest economic growth in the region, together with very substantial improvements in living standards. So at the center of every significant improvement in our lives today, there is a technology of some sort. And the story that those broad historical trends is telling us is the one of our co-evolution with technology. Then purpose. All technologies are born out of a purpose. The high-yield disease-resistant sweet varieties were meant to fight against starvation, and they actually saved billions of lives in Pakistan and in India. Right now, biotechnology is helping us find a vaccine to the COVID in a record time. So technology itself is just a tool. It is a source of possibilities. It doesn't have a purpose of its own, but when driven by purpose, it can save the world. So it is up to us as a society, with all its diversity, to drive it with purpose. Which leads me to my third and final point. We have seen technology prove its ability to amplify people and societies time and again. I would like to make the point that technology is doing more than that. It is forcing us to become more human. I would like to quote here the fabulous Tim Jackson in his fantastic book, Prosperity Without Growth. I know I have fancy reading for a banker. He says humanity is not about spending money we don't have on things we don't need to create impressions that won't last on people we don't care about. This is not humanity. Humanity is about focusing our energy and imagination on inventing the great shooters of tomorrow. And by relieving us from anything that can be automated, by easing our life, technology is not only freeing us to deal exactly with that, but is also forcing us to be more deliberate about asking some fundamental questions about who we are and what does it mean for us to flourish as an individual and as a society. Thank you.
Well done. You still had a few seconds to spare, and I feel that that should be counted in credit towards you. All right, if we are ready for our next, I don't know if it's Genevieve or Genevieve, and forgive me either way. Perhaps you can correct me, but you are up. So are you ready to go? Your time starts now.
Thank you, Genevieve, so you did it right. So there's no doubt humanity needs all the help we can get. Technology is an attractive solution, but by framing tech as our savior, we hurt the odds of actually saving ourselves. Tech has huge potential, but it all depends on political will and human agency. At the end of the day, it's a tool, as you mentioned. We've had the tech to combat human suffering, resource conflicts, and climate crisis for decades. Yet the climate crisis is worsening year after year. as seen by recent tornado fires and apocalyptic orange skies here in California? Why hasn't tech saved us? Lack of political will. Meanwhile, other tech can be used in nefarious ways by governments or bad actors with immense ethical implications. Talking about purpose, in China, Beijing authorities use high-tech surveillance to monitor and subdue millions of Uyghur Muslims. Technology is not neutral. It reflects the priorities and choices of its creators and managers, often white, technically oriented, wealthy men from the West. It's not possible to have data and tech systems like artificial intelligence that are free from bias. We live in a world with systemic racism and sexism. Data and tech like AI systems reflect that world. Black Americans are more likely to be arrested and incarcerated in the US due to historical racism, disparities in policing practices, and other inequalities within the criminal justice system. This data is fed into AI systems. Even if algorithms don't include race as a factor in decision making, they perpetuate systemic racism. AI systems using machine learning might be less biased than people making decisions, but being marginally better is not enough. These systems are often black box, meaning we can't dissect how decisions or predictions were arrived at. Even we can de-bias or unbias AI gives a dangerous and false sense of security. It leads to over-reliance and over-acceptance of AI systems and leads people to confirm and reinforce their own biased perceptions of the world. Tech can help level the playing field, sure, but it isn't the great equalizer. It comes with high costs. Talking about expanding access to mobile phones, internet, etc. Well, beyond privacy concerns, what about the various forms of gender-based violence that are rampant online? Since the proliferation of social media in the early 2010s, suicide rates for teenage girls have skyrocketed. Meanwhile, we're seeing democracy splinter under the weight of social media. Social media has spread rampant disinformation, spawned widespread conspiracy theories, and increased radicalization as algorithms prioritize watch time, fostering addiction to increase ad revenue. Earlier this month, 2 QAnon conspiracists were elected to the US Congress. In a recent Pew survey of over 900 tech experts, more people expect tech to weaken democracy than strengthen it. Even tech companies don't benefit from a narrative that tech will save the world. The type of thinking legitimizes the rush that companies pursue for digital transformation and being first to market without slowing to consider ethical implications. They will fail to build the needed trust and fail to respect fundamental human rights, and sooner or later this can result in their destruction. No doubt, tech is instrumental in helping us tackle issues. As the global economy continues to reel, it can be tempting to ignore regulations that could put a hamper on innovation. But this isn't about hampering innovation. It's about acknowledging and responding to the fact that tech is a tool with serious shortcomings. Technology will never save the world. The very idea that it will perpetuates a false and harmful narrative of techno-solutionism. It has us look at efficient, non-human solutions to systemic problems versus each other.
Well done. That was perfectly timed. Okay, I'm glad I'm not debating either of you two, or in fact, any of you. You're all doing such an amazing job. And I think now it's time to turn to our third group. So I'd like to bring our third group up to the virtual stage and introduce them. Okay, on the for side, we have Gina Neff, and she is a professor of technology and society at the University of Oxford. She says, tech fun fact, I can attest that technology saves lives, as my brother and I were the first in our family to grow up with electricity and indoor plumbing. Wow, I hope you'll talk more about that. And on the other side, on the against side, I have Rahaf Harfoush, the executive director at Red Thread Inc., and also Women's Forum Rising Talent 2014. Good. Here's the tech fun fact. I am the person my friends come to when they need to find out information about a new partner. That's interesting. I'm wondering whether it's like a romantic partner, because you might be very good at dispensing that kind of advice, or whether maybe it's a business partner or tech partner. Maybe you will disclose that in your comments. Okay, are you ready? Gina, you're going to lead off here. Are you ready? You've got 3.5 minutes and your time begins now.
Great. We believe technology will save the world, tech glitches aside, because it actually already has. So there's 3 reasons why I will argue. First, problems can be solved at global scale with speed and with a kind of strength of problems around the world that are in unprecedented nature. Second, technology can help us connect in ways that we help each other solve problems. And finally, it's hard to imagine a future without technology, and it's certainly not a future I want to imagine. First, people are solving problems around the world at global scale, at speed, of an unprecedented nature. To be fair, there may be challenges that we face with technology, but when was the date of the creating of the sequencing of the genome of the COVID-19 virus? Anybody guess? The 10th of January, before we had the problem of a global pandemic, before we were aware of where we would be the 18th of November, scientists around the world using technology had already sequenced the genome, had already shared the data, and were already collaborating using the internet to solve the problem that we are in right now. And that means that we're closer to solutions. We're closer to solutions like the vaccine that's being developed at my university that's promised to make 3.5 billion doses by the end of 2021. That's unprecedented scale of manufacturing. They're linking, the Oxford trials are linking tests that are running right now in India, in Brazil, in South Africa, in Kenya, in the United States. We're linking and solving problems and collaborating together across many, many researchers in a way that's unthinkable even 2 decades ago. Certainly not at this speed. Second, we're all here right now. We know that this pandemic has been devastating for women. It's been devastating for women's unemployment, that almost 1 million women in the United States have dropped out of the labor force, that Black and Latino women in the United States have double-digit unemployment thanks to this pandemic. But here, we, with some privilege and professional women, leaders in our companies and our organizations around the world, we're here together because we can use these technologies to connect and continue to do our work. I'm grateful for that. And finally, it's hard to imagine a future without technology, but I sometimes have to travel in that space between the tech privileged and those without technology. I, 2 months ago, buried my father, and he never had email, never had Facebook, didn't share photos using apps. And yet, when I go and I think about what did I clear out of his house, there were the daily market reports for the cattle market that someone printed out. He had access to information, even though it wasn't at his fingertips. I don't want to live in a world without access to the kinds of information we have.
All right, well done. Thank you so much for sharing that and dealing with the tech glitches. Okay, we are ready to move on to our against argument with Rahaf. Are you ready? You have 3.5 minutes and your time begins now.
So we've heard a lot of great arguments from everybody on this panel, but this debate has highlighted one of the biggest challenges in understanding the impacts of technology on our world. It simply does not fit into a binary option. And we as humans, we really have a hard time dealing with contradicting dualities. We like nice, clean conclusions. But the reality is this. Technologies are both a blessing and a curse. They are saving the world, but they are also ruining it at the same time. Social media has connected us and divided us. And Gina mentioned the collaborative work that was done for a vaccine, but will that vaccine even matter if millions of people believe social media posts that COVID is a hoax? So every time one person dreams up a new tool for good, another exploits it for their own benefit. And this has been applicable for every single technology. Now, this is the reason why we have to stop believing that technology can save the world, because we actually have to accept this duality, which includes messiness and darkness, that we can take advantage of some of these new tech to improve the world while being aware of the true cost that each innovation brings. When we believe in these grand, shiny promises, we're buying into the lie of an easy solution where we can opt out and leave the hard work to someone or something else. But as we know, there are always unforeseen developments, unforeseen consequences. And when we don't accept that responsibility, we end up being surprised when technology accidentally goes wrong, when technology accidentally undermines democracy, when technology accidentally ends up discriminating against groups of people, when we end up being complicit in hurting the very people that we're trying to help. So the darkness is part of the cost that we pay for these advances. I don't think we're going to get rid of that. The second point I want to raise is this. We say that technology will save the world, but let me ask you, what does a saved world actually look like? And who gets to live in it? Major tech CEOs all have a vision of what they believe the future will be, but what about the rest of us? They don't even agree amongst themselves. MIT did fantastic research into the attitudes people had around self-driving cars, right? The cars themselves could be programmed to be incredibly safe, but people couldn't agree on whether the car should prioritize the people in the car or the pedestrians on the street. So how can a car be safe when we can't even agree upon a definition of safety? Technology, as I always say, is a manifestation of belief systems. It's a way for people to bring their vision of what they think the future should look like to life. And we have to get clear about what we're asking for here. Are we asking for ethical, sustainable, and inclusive technologies? My final point is that it's too easy to point to the future and assume that those problems will be fixed someday and ignore the ways that our present actions are impacting the future. If technology could save us, it honestly already would have. To expect it to do so is to absolve our responsibility in doing our part in creating a society worth living in. When we say things like this, it's like we're writing a check and hoping that a future generation can cash it. We've tried this with climate change, it hasn't worked. We shouldn't do the same thing with technology. So by voting against this motion, what you're really saying is that you understand that the most important factor here is us, and we have to decide where to put our attention, money, and time. And those are the choices that are going to determine the future we want to live in.
Okay. Are we going to give the check to the future generations to cash or not? Thank you so much. That was really tremendously exciting. Now we move on to the next stage of the debate. We are going to have, forgive me, just finding this in my notes. Okay. We are going to bring the jury to the stage, and they are going to come up one at a time, I believe, and they're going to speak for 2.5 minutes each to give our competitors, I suppose, on each side a little bit of feedback. So for the first jury member, I'd like to invite Aurélie Jean. And she is a computational scientist and CEO of In Silico Veritas. Would you like to come up to our digital stage? Oh my goodness, you're all there. Forgive me. You know what? In that case, I'm going to introduce all of you, and then you'll go in the order that I introduce you. I told you doing this digitally was going to be fun. Okay, so we're going to begin with Aurélie, and then our second jury member is going to be Dipti Chander, president of Association Emma. And then the going third, will be Tabitha Goldstaub, co-founder of CogX. So Aurélie, let's begin with you, then we'll do Dipti, and then we'll do Tabitha. And you also are timed, sorry, and I'm gonna keep you to 2.5 minutes to the best of my ability. So Aurélie, if you're ready.
Sure.
Okay. I don't see a timer, but I can try and do it on my fabulous Apple computer technology clock in my upper right corner, or on my phone.
Yeah.
Hold on, you know, I am gonna time this to keep it fair because everyone else was timed. So hold on. So I'm gonna set you up for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm doing it on my technology here.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yep.
You got to trust me on this one, on the timing on this one. Okay, Perfect. Are you ready? Time begins now.
Okay, so actually I would like to go back to the arguments against the fact that technology could save the world. And actually I want to mention 2 things that we're mentioning, which is first, the neutrality of the technology, and then the duality of the technology. For the neutrality, someone mentioned, it was Genevieve, I think, mentioned that technology is not neutral. I think it's a wrong statement because technology cannot be neutral and cannot be not neutral. The neutrality comes from the people who are actually building those technologies and the people who are using those technologies. And we should always remind us that to understand that the technology is made by people, or for other purposes. So talking about neutrality of technology is to me a mistake, because you don't focus on the real person who is actually responsible, the real entity who is responsible of any mistake with this technology. Then about duality. Duality is interesting because, of course, you can actually switch the use of something from bad to good for everything. And I wanted actually to ask the person who mentioned that if she were going back 100 years ago, would she encourage Marie Curie working on radioactivity? Because we know that today radioactivity is helping many people treat cancer, so, but we know also that nuclear engineering can bring to other things. So it's the fact that duality and neutrality are, to me, the wrong arguments. Then if we go back to the people who are for the technology, who are thinking that technology is actually can solve the world, I think there is things that we have to be very careful with, which is someone said technology is a tool that has to be driven by purpose, which is true. But how can you actually make sure that you build the right purpose, a sustainable purpose? And how can you make sure that, how can you guarantee that the purpose is right, and actually that the technology is driven by that and not by something else? So it's very, very difficult, of course. And then I think I really like what John was saying about the fact that technology brings you more creativity, more time to solve large-scale problems. But also there is something we should keep in mind, is the fact that if people who are building... 3 seconds. Okay, I'm done.
No, you finish your sentence.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, all right. Are we ready? Dipti, you are up next. You have 2.5 minutes. Just as a reminder to our audience and to our jurors here, you're not going to choose a winner. You're just going to provide your feedback. Okay, your time begins. There is a timer now, so I don't have to use my trusty technology. The timer is up and your time begins now.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Francisca? Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to go back first on technology will save the world. So what a wonderful thoughts that all have you bring today. And I would like to remind that we often think that technology will save the world. I mean, I personally think that technology will save the world, and but I think we should never forget about the fact that human has created those technologies. Sometimes we forgot when we mention that technology will save the world. Some of the panelists told that human have created those technology, and it's not the opposite. I think we should keep this in mind, and through that we would be able to make the good decisions and how we're going to help the society to not use technology in a bad way. So that would be the first thing I would like to highlight. The second aspect is someone mentioned that through technology you can scale, and that is something very, very important here, because if we were not having technology 10 or 50 years ago, we would be in a big trouble on scaling and having information during this pandemic situation managed by every country. So the fact that technology could bring us this rapid scale and bring us all the information we need, and medical sector, nurse, doctors, everyone, scientists who are working on helping us to find a vaccine, is something that technology is bringing to be highlighted and to be keep in mind. And so this all is created by human and not the opposite. So continue believing that technology is a human priority and not technology is going to be something which gonna take our jobs or whatever we doing today. On the other side is when someone mentioned, I mean, all of you different panelists mention about technology will not save the world because of good examples you gave. And I would like to mention that today there is a big lack of diversity in technology, and some of the decisions which are made by males also. So just keep in mind that if technology was representative of our actual society, maybe some of the decisions would not be made in that way. So whenever
you're over.
Sorry.
No, please never apologize, but we've got to keep to the clock, to be fair. All right, Tabitha, you are up and you're going to have 2.5 minutes.
Hello.
Timer. Your time begins now.
Thank you very much. So, gosh, my head was turned as a juror, like each time someone else came on, and that in itself is a real success. I thought everybody did a really great job. I think the thing that the for motion missed the most was the nuance of what tech we're talking about. There's great swathes. I mean, we've been talking about sort of mobile phones through to climate change, through to drug discovery, and I think that if they, in their deliberation before they come back for their closing remarks, could really hone into what tech is going to save the world. Things like artificial intelligence, whereby we are being able to ask technology questions that humans have never been able to answer ourselves. There are real moments of unique, places that technology will be able to do things that with humans, I believe, but that humans alone would not be able to do. And then the team against, I think that the area that they might have missed on was sort of thinking about really digging into like, where has technology negatively impacted? Because ultimately that's how we're all going to start nodding with you guys. Everything you said about it obviously being humans and technology machines together resonates. There was so many nodding in my mind, and I think in the viewers, but let's really dig into those areas that make you kind of gasp. And ultimately, where I think the war ground is the climate crisis, and both sides debated the climate really well. But my winning move, I think, for you would be if you can, the for and the against could use some of their thinking around that, because that's for me, the swing state is the climate crisis. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Okay, you had some seconds left on the clock. All right, I like it. Efficient. Now we are going to give our two teams for and against 2.5 minutes to go into their private breakout groups and figure out what their final responses are going to be. They will choose one member from each team to present those final responses, their final rebuttal. And while we are doing that, and while they are doing God knows what behind the scenes, I dread to think it's probably very panicky, the rest of us have a wonderful, wonderful guest who I'm so thrilled to introduce. I'd like to welcome Amanda Gorman. She is a poet. She's written an amazing poem in the start of this book, Vital Voices, by Alice Nelson. And actually, Amanda, I would like to actually ask you to begin, if you don't mind, by reading your poem to the audience, and then maybe we will have a minute or two to ask a few questions. So I think you're going to read to us We Rise. So please, over to you. And I'm so thrilled that you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm on screen, good to go.
You're good to go.
Awesome. Great.
Everyone can see you.
This poem is called We Rise. Today, everyone's eyes are on us as we rise. Today is the day women are paving the way, speaking our truth to power. In this hour, it is our duty to find the brave beauty in rooting for other women, so they too know we are not victims. We are victors, the greatest predictors of progress. We press for change. A new dawn drawn into the open by women whose silence is broken. We push on and act on our responsibility to bring visibility to the most vulnerable, to bring freedom to those who don't have a choice, to bring volume to those who are using their voice. We clear a woman's way. We don't fear the day she steps into the light, because we are with her every step of that fight. There's a lot at stake, but making a difference always takes great courage. So we encourage women who dare to stare fear square in its face, women who've always shown that when one woman stands up, she is never alone. We know that when she rights a wrong, she will fight to bring others along to the network, into the conversation, working together to change communities and nations for generations. Our world made all the stronger the longer women are able to sit at the table. It is her strength, her story, and her spirit, which inspires other vital voices to speak up when they hear it. So let it be said that light will be shed when our world is led by leaders ahead of the headlines. Those voices who are first on the front line, these women who stand up, knowing the wind, not by where it is, but by where it is blowing, leading worlds, not by how society is, but by where change is going. We all leap forward when one woman tries, when she defies with her rallying cries. Here lies, but does not rest, the best of tested women who call us all to rise, speaking their truth in this finest hour, that to their own power, every single woman is entitled. But it's how women empower others that makes our voices so vital.
Wow. Sorry.
No
I set a timer. Unfortunately, even you had the time, but I was supposed to ask you questions after this, but I think you've said absolutely everything so many of us are feeling in this moment. That was, I don't really have words, so I'm not going to ruin it with my
Great.
Monday questions. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to the next phase of this. We should have two debaters coming back to give their final rebuttal. So hopefully everyone is ready and the final remarks are prepared. Okay, so you will need to let me know. I believe on the for side, giving the final remarks, we have Gina, Neff. Is that correct? Thumbs up?
Correct.
Yes, okay, great. And who is going to be on the against side?
Me, Genevieve.
Okay, so that's Genevieve. All right, so let's bring you two up to the virtual stage. You have 1.5 minutes to deliver your final rebuttal. I hope there'll be a timer. Right. All right, Gina, you're up. You have 1.5 minutes. Are you ready? Yes.
Ready.
Okay. Time starts now.
Technology can save the world. A vote for this motion is a vote to help us improve and continue to work to fight to make technology better. We certainly don't want to go backwards, and we don't want to throw the baby out with the technological bathwater. The examples that we've given really have talked about computing power, broadly defined, how new kinds of information technologies and new ways of processing that data help us think about and envision a world that works for everyone and works better. Sure, tech's not perfect. One of the examples mentioned, for example, is in misinformation and the rise of misinformation. And yet we know from data that people who get information on the internet are more informed. If they're new online news readers, they are less likely to believe in misinformation. And that we see across elections in various countries, the same platform offering very different affordances to those elections in terms of the amount of misinformation that circulates. So more circulates in the United States, less in the UK, and even less in continental Europe. That's not technology's fault. That's regulation. We can save the world by using computing power to solve some of our biggest problems. We just need to do it with regulation and people.
Fantastic. All right. Are you ready for your final remarks? Genevieve, you have 1.5 minutes and your time begins now.
You want examples of how technology is ruining the world? QAnon, genetic databases being hacked, undermining democracy, systemic racism embedded in AI systems. I don't think we lack examples of this going awry. We've had tech to save issues like climate change for decades and haven't done it. Again, lack of political will. Every time someone develops tech for good, another uses it for immense harm. Tech isn't neutral because tech is developed and managed by people. We need to stop outsourcing our problems. This is about people. And saying tech will save the world assumes humans will always make the right decisions. But time and time again, tech is used in nefarious ways and by bad actors. Technology will never save us. Instead of asking if tech can save us, we must be asking how can we acknowledge its limitations and build technology more inclusively. It's time for a radical redesign of how we think about developing, using, and managing AI systems and other tech. One that centers voices, perspectives, and wisdom of those most marginalized, including women and girls. More, we need investment and focus in non-tech interventions that address systemic issues in our world. A vote against isn't saying, let's get rid of technology and let's get rid of innovation. Not at all. It's about acknowledging its shortcomings and limitations. It's about recentering people. And it's really about believing in ourselves to solve the issues that we've created.
Okay. Do you know what happens next? What happens next is, audience, I hope you're awake. We are going to have you vote, and I'd like to actually invite Sophie Lambin back. She's going to explain a little bit about the voting process, I think. Sophie, if we can get you back here.
I'm here.
Yay!
I'm here. Hi, Francesca.
Hello.
That was amazing. That was amazing. Thank you so much, brave debaters and insightful jury members. So participants, the many thousands of you that are watching, there is a little magic button somewhere that says vote. And you can either vote for the motion, which is this House believes that technology will save the world, or against the motion. This House, against the motion. Let not me create more confusion. Now you can only vote once, even though you might be tempted to press many times on one or the other. But you can call your family and friends. They better be ready to vote just now, because it will take now, I think, a few seconds for the result to come out. So I don't know if Amanda is still there. I would have so loved you to ask her that question, Francesca, because it was the most beautiful and touching poem ever. And what an interlude. My only regret is that the debaters missed it. But yeah, so this is happening as we speak. And Francesca, the hand is back to you.
Well, firstly, it's not often that I'm without words. My business is words, but Amanda's poem was so very beautiful that I just couldn't ask any questions after it, and I hope it touched all of you. I felt kind of a little bit like what we've all been thinking over these past few months, and I wondered when she was writing it whether she had to look at the blank page for ages and ages and kind of think, where do I begin, or whether it all just came out in a huge rush. But all I know is that it set me speechless, and I'm wondering if it did the same to everyone else. So let's talk technology really quickly, Sophie. What are you feeling? Are you on either side of the debate here? Are you leaning one way or the other? Is tech going to save the world, or is it going to bring us all down?
Well, that's really unfair, Francesca, to put it back to me. But thank you for that. Well, listen, I don't know where you stand, but I just want the world to be saved. So I think that's certainly a starting point to my position. Technology has been pretty kind to us so far, so I don't want to say anything that could jinx it either way, as we are certainly for just the next few minutes heavily reliant on it. So I'm slightly sitting on the fence, I suppose.
Right. I think it's best not to let technology hear that we're even discussing it. We just want to have a very smooth sailing ride to the end of this debate, and then after that we can discuss. I think the real question is whether we're going to take the red pill or the blue pill from the Matrix, and whether the scales will fall from our eyes, or whether we prefer to live in denial. I enjoyed that image.
Maybe you can do a post debate, sense check with our debaters.
Maybe that should have been the vote. Red pill or blue pill.
Okay. I've got the results.
Okay, I think we need a virtual drum roll here, which I'll do. Da, 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 da. Okay, so will you announce the winning team and then the second?
I'll announce the numbers.
Okay.
And then hopefully the winning team will be inferred from that.
Okay.
So
okay.
On the for team, I have 512 votes. On the against team, I have 507 votes. So if it had been an applause, I think we would have had to do a rematch.
Or we redo the whole debate again?
Well, you'd have to ask our fellow debaters.
I think Sophie, I really think you've got to call that a tie. Is that okay, debater? Is that fair? Can we all be grown-ups about it and shake hands and say, more or less, there were probably one or two people either side who pressed the wrong button, but it would have ended up exactly even. I mean, come on, that's amazing. I think we should do one final round of applause. If we were here in real life all together, we would have the audience standing ovation and cheers. So let's try and unmute if we possibly can and do one final round of applause.
Bravo. Bravo.
Thank you.
Well done to everyone. Amazing, great arguments on both sides. Clearly, brilliantly argued. The audience couldn't even decide. And now I have no idea whether technology is or is not going to save the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much once again to all our debaters and to you, Francesca, for keeping them in line. Thank you to our jury members. Francesca, your disciplined moderation of the debate helped to make those exchanges a highlight of today's forum. And we hope that in watching these two sides come together with such talent, it really has shown, while that we may not agree on how to get there, we definitely share a desire to deepen our understanding of the challenges and forces at play to build a more inclusive world. So it's a great note on which to end what has been a really full day of session. We've heard from participants from every corner of the world, from different generations and industries, and from different backgrounds and experiences, all of them aligned towards a common goal of building a common voice. And I'd just like to spend a few minutes sharing some of the highlights of today's session. By no means an exhaustive account of all that has been discussed, but as you know, we have really shared build our program around three pillars. What have we learned from this crisis? What can we build on? And what do we need to reimagine for an inclusive future? So first, from what we have learned, I'll pick a word from Karima Sylvant. She said that mental health is the shadow pandemic behind the COVID pandemic, and that it's disproportionately affecting women because of the extra burdens of care and financial insecurity they have had to face, with 75% of women prioritizing the health of their children, partners, and parents above their own. What have we learned from Gina Neff? That data gathering can be about fair representation. We can benefit from it so long as it's not used to harm us and used instead to reflect the society we want to build. What have we learned from Hindu Umaru Ibrahim? That more than 20,000 indigenous people have died from COVID because of their lack of access to information and healthcare. What can we build on? From Raphael Torchman, that innovative healthcare system that include women are the best accelerators for addressing women's health issues. From Marie-Christine Lombard, what do we need to build on? More risk-taking. In today's world, women must take more risks, she says, than men, so that they can shatter the glass ceiling that stopped them from flying high. From Maria Gabriel, women decision makers, having more women who evaluate and validate ideas and projects rather than simply contributing. And last but not least, what can we reimagine? A world where, from Farah Pandit, our solutions are not one-dimensional, because our communities are not one-dimensional. From Trisha de Borgrave, women are at the helm of all future innovation, green industrial strategies, and smart cities. From Angel Gurria, gender has been mainstream into all policy decisions. And with that, I would like to bid you farewell for what I hope you will agree has been a truly amazing day. I am truly grateful to our speakers, moderators, and to you participants for your engagement throughout. Hours of work have gone into every one of these sessions. And I would like to wish you, wherever you are in the world, a great day, evening, or night, and look forward to welcome you back tomorrow morning at 10:45 at Paris time for online networking, and at 11:30 for our first opening session. So goodbye, and thank you very much.